Slovakia, continuing. Oh, and I was going to speak on something about that book as far as this book I came across. Because I remember I had a two-third guy that I kind of grew up around before, way before I came in the truth. Well, like it's one of the few people that I still associate with, although I'm in the truth and he's still in the world, Because at the end of the day, I've known, I've heard the statement about how, that you got helpers. And, when I came into the truth, I had to turn my back, not not just me turning my back on my family, but my family turned their back on me. You know what I mean? Like to this day, I got a big family in my city. Yet still, when I was going to homeless, it's funny. I was just seeing a family member, my earthly family, and I was homeless for like 3.5 years. And, the thing, no, I was homeless longer than that. When you take time to think about it, I got off the street twice, but okay, so I became homeless in 2014. I just got off the street last year. Long story short, though, even when I was allowed to stay over certain people's house, that's still considered homeless. But that guy kind of helped me. Fed me, allowed me to spend the night here and there. So, you know, I've tried to give him the truth, but he just one of the ones that the Most High got blocked, and they were going into that scripture about how. I think it's in the book of Isaiah where the Most High said, well, if they were to convert, they would have to be healed. But the Most High, I guess, doesn't really want him. Well, the long story short, he's always been one of them guys that, he think a little bit outside of the box. He in the street, but then he also, he know things of value, you know what I mean, like books and whatnot. And long story short, he came across this Masonic book and he let me look at it. And, I didn't realize what he was giving me at first. He had went through a guy that we grew up around. The guy no longer owned the house, or his family no longer owned the house. So he was going into the guy's house and paying him a couple dollars and taking what he would want because the guy was just, he strung out on drugs and shit. So long story short, uh, he came across this Masonic book. So I didn't know what it was. I'm over his house and he come and he say, look, he know I've always been in the book. So he bring me the book and I open it up. No, I think it was already open. I didn't realize what I was reading until I started reading. I touch it, and then, it was just a fucked up spirit on it. I'm like, oh, but I know what I read, and those are like fucking real spellcraft, witchcraft books. You know what I mean? It's saying some shit about 666 and all this old esoteric shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then it was just a vibe I got off of touching the motherfucker. I'm like, ugh, you know what I mean? But then in my spirit, I thought about it. I was like, he's trying to sell it to like a rare bookstore, and I'm sure he could have got some money for it. Because, like I said, I've never seen a Masonic book like this. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, I was like, well, you know what? I'll buy it from you. I was gonna try and give him a couple dollars for it because it's free to him. He whatever he get. Although he kind of knew it was probably was worth some money. Long story short, but I told him like to get rid of the book, and he said he ended up getting rid of it. But like months later, I thought about buying the book because I was actually thinking about bringing out some of the things that was in the book. As far as like to expose them, but it wasn't meant. You get what I'm saying? If it was meant, it would have happened. Just like with the current situation I'm going through now. In my heart, my spirit, I want certain things, but at the same time, the Most High could lay down his life. Well, if Yahweh Shai could lay down his life for me, who am I to try and hold on to certain things? I mean, it says the servant isn't greater than the master. I didn't mean to, get to running off at the mouth, at the end of the day. So, like I said, with that one book, if I see something in it potentially that I could bring out, I will. But like I said, 9 to 10 is steering to the way where I'm just gonna. Because at the end of the day, you're supposed to base everything off of scriptures, and like the Messiah said, he said everything I've told you. Roughly paraphrasing, he said how people talk things in secret. He's like, but what I've told you right here. Roughly paraphrasing. So anyhow, the last statement I made, the book made said, throughout human history, the occult elite have clearly understood that those who control the money control the world. Subtitle: Short Trip to Tyranny. A recent covering story in Newsmax magazine, the plan to abolish cash, Salakia, highlighted concerns of prominent economic Salakia highlighted concerns of prominent economists about the campaign for a cashless society. In an article, Newsmax senior editor David A. Pattern wrote, the governments around the world are beginning to ban cash, and the United States is moving in this direction too. Continue. says in the article, Newsmax senior editor David A. Patton wrote that the governments around the world are beginning to cash. Slocky ban cash, and the United States is moving in that direction too. This will mean total surveillance of financial transactions by the government. The anti-cash crusaders want to render paper money as obsolete as the 8-track cassette tape, Patton wrote. Based on what's been happening around the globe, they might just be able to do it. The United Nations, multinational banks, charitable foundations, and credit card companies are all stepping up their campaign to dethrone King Cash. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supports a cashless. I'm going to reread that. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supports a cashless society as is a leading member of the Better Than Cash Alliance, a group of multinational credit card companies, charitable foundations, and sovereign governments based out of the UN. And just to elaborate or to expound a little bit, I guarantee you, like, from what I've heard, when you go research Bill Gates, just like when you researched Mark Zuckerberg, he's related some kind of way back to certain people. That's why certain people get these amazing breakthroughs, these little ideas turn into, like, you know, it's like how Hitler, you know what I mean? Because he was really related to a Rothschild. So at the end of the day, you know, it's like they, uh, you know, it's like they breed little sleeper cells and you know what I mean, activate them to actually like try and bring this wicked ass plan to petition. But anyhow, I guarantee, like, because when you always go into Bill Gates, they always bring up this Melinda Gates chick. Now I've seen her, but I've never researched it. But one day, if the spirit's on me, I am. I guarantee, because they tend to actually like do matchmaking. You know what I mean? So they tend to actually go get you know certain people to, like, when they allow, because all they're doing is like what they used to do back in the day. As far as like when you had kings and whatnot, when you had betrothed, like when one person was betrothed to another, like if I had a daughter and another Israelite had a son, we might have our children become betrothed, because in a way, that's why the brothers always bring it to the fact that, they got, daughters back in the ancient world. Like I got 3 daughters back in the ancient world that I'd have been a wealthy man, because I could make, certain, I could marry them off because the father had say so of who they were married. And I could, this man, father might have had, industrious trade with cattle. So by me allowing his son to marry my daughter, you know what I mean, I get, what I mean, it's like business deals. Just like with today with these Masons, you know what I mean? Like in the end, they do, the higher up, the more you, the wickedness, the more you, the wickedness you do, like that one, MK Ultra subject, I forgot what was it, Savanti or something, said how, like, at the end of the day, you would think, like they say, if you're like the president or whatnot, you would think like, no, they don't do the least, they do the more abominable thing. So, like, just back, like, you got people that become Masons because it's a lot of people that are Masons, and they therefore could, like with the old saying, like, I ain't gonna lie, when I was in the world, I thought about it because when I seen what kind of pull they had, what I mean, and I was off, you know, breaking Esau laws, but that's the law of the Bible too, like you ain't supposed to sell drugs. So, but you realize how a Mason that go to court and the case will get thrown out because the judge is a Mason, or the prosecutor or is a Mason, or the lawyer and the prosecutor are Masons. So, you know what I mean? Like, it was, but not realizing or understanding, the Most High, like I said, woke me up to a lot of things. So, call Allah, Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh, Shai, by Hashem, Rahak, that's that. Like I said, I know I deviated, but my point being, I guarantee you, Melinda Gates comes from a family that's influential some kind of way, you know. Like, she's probably of some kind of, I mean, not some kind of satanic, other satanic bloodline, you know what I mean? Guarantee, you go back to her maiden name, she comes from a family that, well to do and probably intricately in the situation. Like I said, I ain't gonna say she's black nobility or one of the 13 bloodlines, but I guarantee you, some kind of way she's involved, because when you go into all these different like that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they do a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Like they plan a lot of the Planned Parenthood shit and all that. You know, I think it's the foundation that was talking about trying to block the sun, and then when you go into that, well, why are you trying to block the sun? But what did the Most High say? If you could basically mess up the sun, roughly paraphrasing, but when you stop my orders, I guess he would stop loving the children of Israel, roughly paraphrasing. So that's how, like I said, this devil ain't really been to the moon because or to out of the solar system because you know Esau, like I just was hearing the one brother from London, Esau knows the scriptures. You know what I'm saying? Esau knows that he's Esau. You know what I'm saying? The top ones anyway. So at the end of the day, they looking at it like shit. You don't think if they could actually, upset the prophecy, they would? Don't nobody want to be Esau. Esau don't want to be Esau. Esau probably just like fuck, cause it's in their nature. Like fuck it, you know what I mean? That's truly the devil. Um, the Bill and Gates Melinda Salaki. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supports a cashless society that is a leading member of the Better Than Cash Alliance, a group of multinational credit card companies, charitable foundations, and sovereign governments based out of the UN. Salaki. A Gallup poll found that 62% of Americans expect the United States to go cashless. Expect the United States to go cashless during their lifetime. They express these views as more Americans make payments from an expanding menu of electronic options and fewer make cash transactions. And as younger populations are becoming more comfortable without cash in their pockets, according to Gallup, this trend has set off alarms among conservatives, especially free market and libertarian economists. They warn that declaring a war on cash could send society on a short trip to tyranny, Patton wrote. Larry White, a senior fellow at the Libertarian Cato Institute, says the push for a cashless society is largely being driven by major credit card companies that stand to make substantial profits, along with governments looking to increase tax revenues, which I'm sure plays a part. But in actuality, this is all the plan of the Most High Yahweh by Yashem Yahweh Shah. It's written. You know what I'm saying? This is his script. This is his. This is his will. Of course, it's all being done in the name of the fighting black markets, tax evasion, and a variety of crimes enabled by cash. There has been governments who have used their access to people's financial records to suppress their political enemies. White says it has a chilling effect on people if everything they do is subject to surveillance by the government. The presumption ought to be that people are entitled to privacy unless there is evidence that they have committed a crime. But we've made crimes of just ordinary depositing and withdrawing of cash, transporting of cash, or using cash to buy big ticket items in some countries. Worrisome. So that's worrisome. It enables a kind of big brother state to pry into the details of people's lives. It's just a matter of time. Subtitle. The elite's campaign to create a cashless society comes amid staggering levels of global debt. An IMF report by two Harvard University professors found that debt levels in the Western world are approaching a 2-century high watermark, and the endgame of the global financial crisis will require a restructuring of the world's economic system. A report by the Institute for International Finance found global debt is 217 trillion and climbing. That's 327% of the world's annual economic output. The amount of debt is larger than the estimates of the total wealth on planet Earth. Let's reread. The amount of debt is, and this is Western, the amount of debt is larger than the estimates of the total wealth on the planet Earth. Chuck Missler says, which if anybody's familiar with Chuck Missler, he's in the Bible prophecy and whatnot. He's an author. It doesn't take great scholarship to realize that unstable. It doesn't take great scholarship to realize that's unstable. It can't endure, and those debts will never be repaid by any legitimate currency. So there is an implosion or collapse of some kind that is inevitable. Why is it that the global debt and our national debt continue to expand to such dangerous levels? The reason is debt is the primary way that a group of international banking families and financial moguls rule the world. The Federal Reserve and the central banks are giant banks owned by these families, according to researchers. When America was founded, there was no private banking consortium known as the Federal Reserve. The U.S. government acted as its own Federal Reserve, as the Constitution requires. If Congress had followed the Constitution, we would not have 20 trillion in national debt to pay interest on. Today, more than 99% of the world's population lives in countries under the control of central banks. 99% of the world's population lives in countries under the control of central banks. The United States didn't rack up 20 trillion in debt by accident. The Federal Reserve System was created to put Americans into debt. Its creation began with secret meetings in the early 20th century at American banker J.P. Morgan's Jekyll Island Hunt Club. And that's the spirit, because I just was speaking on that, right? I know it's a book, The Creature of Jekyll Island or something. And it goes into how they had that meeting, and basically they created the Federal Reserve off the coast of Georgia. These meetings involved banker Paul Warburg Salaki. These meetings involved banker Paul Warburg and others who owned as much as 1/4 of the world's wealth. I'm gonna stop there.